Good morrow, my lovely little ghosts, and welcome to the Dark Orchard. I'm Laura, and this is a story time. As I said in my intro, this is a story time. More specifically, this is the story time about the one time that I almost died caving. Tomorrow actually marks the anniversary of when this actually happened. But let's start from the beginning. So for the 4th of July, my best friend and I flew up to Kentucky. Our goal was to go to Mammoth Caves, and we were going to do the advanced tour where you get to do really cool stuff behind the scenes inside the cave that most people don't get to see. Throughout this story time, I'm going to be popping in images because I took more pictures back then than I did video, so you can kind of see the story told. So we flew up to Mammoth Caves, Kentucky, and just a side note, I tried White Castle for the first time, and oh my gosh, the best burgers I've ever had. There's nothing like a fresh White Castle burger. Prove me wrong. So we flew up to Kentucky, we rented a car, and we drove to the hotel, got settled, all that jazz. So our first day there, we actually planned on doing the behind the scenes cave tour. We got fitted in our jumpsuits, we were all ready to go. Went through security procedures, and I had been training really hard for a long time. My training for this trip that I'm talking about actually has an I almost died story of its own. So if you'd like to hear that one, just let me know, and I'll make another video. But basically, I trained for a while. I got my body ready to go hiking and caving and doing strenuous activity. So once we were there, we got fitted in our jumpsuits, given the regulations, and taken into the cave. The cave was absolutely magical. Everything around us was so beautiful. And it was all naturally done, and it was awesome. It was really awesome. But where other groups were going down a path, our group branched off to the right, and when we branched off to the right, we branched off into a cavern inside the cave, and you could instantly hear dripping from the stalactites, and it was just like a movie. It was like an actual movie. So the first little bit wasn't so bad. We climbed a few rocks and stuff, had to jump a little bit, but here's the scary part. There was a big gap, it's sort of like a cave ravine, it was a gap, and there was a big drop in the middle, in between where we were and where we were supposed to go. And let me see if I can do this with my hands. Okay, we were down here, and we needed to get here. To get here, we had to jump from here to here. And my legs, really short. My torso makes up more of my body than my legs do. I got really short legs. Running is hard for me. Jumping is impossible for me. I jump this far off the ground. It's not good. So when I learned that we had to jump, I was terrified. Absolutely terrified. Absolutely terrified to jump from that low platform onto a big platform that I knew was the height of me. The space in between was at least 5 foot, if not more. Or at least it seemed that way to me. So I watched everyone else in the group do it. I watched my best friend do it. There were a few people behind me when I got pushed up to the front, and they encouraged me, you can do it, you can totally do it, you can so do it, you're totally capable of doing this. People shorter than you, people fatter than you, people do this. And I'm like, okay, I'll do it. So I get a running start, and I hesitate, and I fall straight down in the middle. Straight down. Straight down between. Bye-bye, Laura. This is where I could have died. I could have died actually in 2 different ways. The first way I could have died, obviously, is by falling to my death between the 2 gaps. But thankfully, some random guy was quick enough that he grabbed my helmet. Because we were wearing helmets, we were wearing full-on gear, right? So this guy grabs my helmet, and by grabbing my helmet, he gives the guide time enough to come back across and go down to where we were before, because it was sort of like a spiral, and the guide goes down to where we were, and she kind of swings me over and gets me back onto the platform. So I'm for a few seconds dangling there just by my helmet, and that helmet's the only thing keeping me from falling to my absolute death. And this random stranger that I don't know the name of, I never even saw again, I don't even think I saw his face to begin with, saved my life. But then he got yelled at by the guide because the guide said he could have snapped my neck when he grabbed my helmet. Honestly, I was gonna break bones either way, and I'm pretty sure that that big of a fall would have just killed me. So the risk of saving my life or maybe breaking my neck, it was kind of a 50-50, and it turned out okay. So I'm really thankful for that guy, even though he just thought on instinct. His instincts were right. I don't see myself having gotten out of that any other way. I don't see myself having survived that any other way. But in 2 different ways, I almost died that day, and it was terrifying. And the worst part of it was, I couldn't even finish the tour. Why couldn't I finish the tour? Because when I dropped, I actually scraped my entire side. So when I fell, I actually scraped the skin off from the back of my knee all the way up to my butt, and there was just like this huge scratch mark that was missing skin. Graphic, I know, but it was just like this big wound through my pants, through my jumper. Like, if I didn't have on a pair of jeans and a jumpsuit underneath, I don't know what would have happened. I actually wanted to turn back and go the other direction, back out the exit, but they still made me go across the ravine. However, this time they actually had people holding me the whole time and helped me across the big ravine area. And I'm like, why wasn't this done to start with? But, you know what? So when we finally got through to that one point, the guide helped me into an area that was part of the commercial area of the cave. And she told me to just sit there with my flashlight. So the guide told me to just sit on a rock that was in the middle of the little roadway and hold my flashlight. She gave me a granola bar and a flashlight. And in a few minutes' time, the children's tour group was going to be coming through. They were going to go eat lunch in the snowball room. I was to go with them to eat lunch in the snowball room, which was this really cool room that looked like it had snowballs on it, but it was actually just the way the cave was formed. And then from there, complete their tour and wait for the advanced tour to finish later in the day. What she failed to tell me was I was going to be sitting in the dark for a while. The pitch dark. The absolute darkness. I'm not even exaggerating here. She gave me the flashlight and she said, conserve the battery. When I leave, turn it off, and if you get too scared, turn it back on. The reason she said if you get too scared, turn it back on, was that it was the absolute pitch darkness. Absolute darkness. Unless you've been in a cave, you've never seen this kind of darkness. You think the scariest things imaginable. You think the scariest things unimaginable. It's a whole different world. It's a whole different world inside your brain when there's so much darkness. Not even the tiniest bit of light was in that hallway when she left. When that flashlight went off, it was complete darkness. And I sat there. I sat there with my granola bar, terrified. I was terrified. I was in pain. I was just in a very comfortably cold cave, thinking about that episode of Buffy where Willow is with the Gnarl Demon and she's all by herself and the Gnarl Demon is like whispering in her ear. Like, that's where my brain was going, and it was scary. And I was almost too afraid to even turn my flashlight on because I was afraid of what was going to be in front of me. That's how scary it was. That's how absolutely irrationally scary the pitch darkness is. With no one else around you, your brain really starts playing tricks on you. More than one time I thought I heard voices and I didn't. I thought it was going to be the tour group and it wasn't. But then finally the kids tour group came through. I heard the sounds of kids laughing. I had my flashlight on so that they'd know I was there. And they had obviously radioed the guide saying that I was going to be waiting for them. So once I met up with the kids, I went to the snowball room, I ate my granola bar, they ate their lunches, and then I finished the tour with them. We saw a little bit more of the cave, but it wasn't much, and then I went back up to the exit. By this time my leg is hurting, and I'm all alone again, because the school group kind of dispersed. They went to like the gift shop and stuff, and I was left at the picnic shelter where we originally got dressed in our jumpsuits. I changed out of my jumpsuit, and I waited, and I waited, and I waited, and I waited, and I waited. I waited all day long until they finally came back. So when they finally came back, they had to change clothes and they had to wash off because at the time the cave was very infested with white nose syndrome, which is a syndrome that affects the bats, and it was affecting all the bats in different caves throughout the areas. They wanted to take extra precaution, make sure that cave visitors weren't spreading white nose syndrome to other bats, which was a precaution that we took the whole time we were there. So that night we had a really good dinner, and then we bought fireworks, and we set off the fireworks in the parking lot, and it was such an amazing experience. It was so much fun. My best friend always makes things so much fun. Because I didn't get to see the parts of the cave that he got to see, we actually decided to stay for a few more days and ended up doing every other tour available for the cave. Some of the most memorable parts of the cave were the giant's coffin. It was a huge rock shaped like a coffin, and it was naturally formed that way, but it was gigantic. It looked like a giant's coffin. They also told a few ghost stories, like certain people that had been crushed by rocks and certain bodies that could never be recovered, so they just kind of were there in the cave. And there was one tour that we took called the Lantern Tour, where we literally were just lit by lantern light, and it felt like a Scooby-Doo episode. My best friend and I are like Shaggy and Velma, and in that moment we really felt like it, and we kept quoting them and just having a good time. There was one part of the cave that was nothing but stalactites and stalagmites, and honestly, that kind of stuff is so beautiful to me. Like, I could just stare at that kind of stuff forever. And that room was a little bit colder than the others because of the water. The river system that runs through the bottom of Mammoth Caves, they actually call the river Styx. Like in Greek mythology, like Hades, river Styx, you know. That's really cool. There was one area where we had to pass over these like metal bridges, and someone had dropped their cell phone down deep in it, and you could just barely make out the screen. That was really interesting to see. And then the last tour that we took, we actually had to climb up a spiral staircase, and it was hundreds of steps to get back up to the beginning. My best friend has the memory here, and he'd be able to tell you all the like interesting history facts to go along with it, but I don't remember them. I do remember that there was some sort of organization where teenage boys were the ones that built the pathways that are inside of the cave and built the different structures, and there's actually even a bathroom inside of the cave, which is really interesting and really cool. And there's a cafeteria, which is the snowball room. I suggest if you're ever in Kentucky or ever just want a really cool adventure and want to go to Kentucky, Mammoth Caves is the best place to go. At the end of the trip, my best friend actually bought me a mug that says "Got Bats," and that has been my dairy-free chocolate milk mug ever since. And it's got a cute little Mammoth Caves bat fact on the back, and I love that they actually had bat merchandise at Mammoth Caves. They do not have bat merchandise at the zoo, in case you missed that, but they do have bat merchandise at Mammoth Caves, which made me so super happy because I love bats. On our last day, we actually went around exploring the little town. There were a lot of like really cute old historical things, like really old attractions, including a haunted house that I refused to go in because I'm kind of a scaredy cat, but my best friend went through it and he said it was really cheesy, which is really cool. I got some pictures from the outside and some pictures of him outside of it. Overall, aside from the almost dying, it was a really fun trip, but the almost dying in 2 different ways part, that was super scary. However, the visiting Mammoth Caves thing, 10 out of 10 would totally do again. I really love like sciencey stuff like that, and I really love learning about bats and about cave systems and all of that, so it was just a really awesome trip, aside from the almost dying part. So that was me explaining how I almost died in Mammoth Caves, Kentucky. Before we go, this video is going up on June 3rd, which means this video is being posted on my friend Jessica's birthday, so I want to wish a very happy birthday to Jessica. Happy birthday birthday, sweetheart. Thank you so much for being so supportive all this time. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed this video, and I hope you come around again soon. Say bye. Bye. And...
But, same deal. But you'll get the idea.
So...
And we kept quoting, and I'm pretty sure that
So... And we got...
You were making so much noise, little one. And I hadn't... Yeah, with my flashlight, I did have a headlamp here.
We actually decided... They were like... I've never... So... Like...
This is not going to be a long video.
And ended up... Bleh. Good morrow, my lovely little ghosts. Am I recording? I'm recording. Good morrow. Start over. Start over.
Tomorrow actually marks...
And... Yeah.